I want to thank you all for being here today. And just know if my words stutter, so does my heart. Is this, I don't, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. So, I guess let's get started. Oh, I love you too. So again, as Tracy mentioned, my name is Robert Washington-Vaughns. I'm the founder and janitor of Black Men Flower Project. And that has needed to maintain containment of flowers from black men to black men. And I understand a lot of us here are not men, are not black, and I want to introduce a new idea here today. Again, so I may go off script, I may ramble, but just stay with me to the end and I'll definitely make it worth your while. So, the future of flowers. I like to start with a poetic rendition of Alice Walker's We Alone. This is a poem that I read as a child a long time ago, and it always stuck with me. And I think I lost it for a few years. And as I was writing this talk, it kind of came back to me. We alone can devalue gold by not caring if it falls or rises in the marketplace. Wherever there is gold, there is a chain, And if your wealth isn't gold, so much worse for you. Flowers, shells, and C-shaped stones are all as rare. This will be our revolution, to love what is plentiful as much as what is scarce. So before we start, I do want to start with a couple definitions up on the screen. And I won't go word for word here, as I'm sure everyone here can read, but something I learned recently is that art can be a window or a mirror, and that great art can be both. I define community as those within close physical, emotional, or socioeconomic range to oneself. I feel like a lot of people here, we have businesses, we have passion projects, and we want to be on Instagram, we want to be on LinkedIn, we want to go viral, but it's like, who in a 5-block radius knows what we're doing? Who in a 5-mile radius? Do your neighbors know what you're up to? Do they have similar passions and ambitions? So I urge you all to think about community in that context as I continue on. Nature, the imperfect natural material world and its phenomena. I thought this was interesting. Flowers, a tool, resource, or meaning, or means of dismantling systemic barriers and building sustainable futures, or a structure having showy and colorful parts, a blossom. So yeah, and then this is my favorite one, awe, a feeling of respect or reverence mixed with dread and wonder, inspired by something majestic and powerful. And I really want to tap into that today. What is that powerful thing that can bring us awe, and why does it bring us dread as well? As well as floral activism. What is a floral activist? I don't know, but I'm gonna read these words I wrote last night. We'll find out. Part 1, the history of flowers. Oh, the history of us, flowers and I. I like to read this again. Another quote. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was my reward for my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. I was 9 years old when I realized I wanted to be a doctor. Up until then, I spent most of my time reading Goosebumps books, rewriting Disney movie scripts from memory, and deconstructing R&B songs from radio-recorded cassette tapes. I would change the lyrics from the chorus just enough to make the words my own, folding and creasing the pages neatly to pass it off to my crush of the week. My mother came home roughly 2 hours and 10 minutes into my adolescent manifesto, carrying in the problems of a single mother like a college student carrying mugs full of frothy beer back to his group of friends. She would sit on the couch, shuffling and assembling the paper she had grabbed off the copy machine long after everyone else left. Robert, she said, you're going to be a doctor. You just get to pick what kind. I said, Mom, why a doctor? Well, they make a lot of money, and you can buy anything you want, even a new mink coat for your mom. My mother laid the documents before me and lifted her aching bones from the couch and carried herself to the bedroom for her afternoon nap. I knew it was quiet time. I laid the neatly stapled papers across the living room table, carefully scanning the text. Department of Labor job statistics for a pharmacist, a lawyer, a physician. Growth rate is expected to be up over 20% over the next 10 years. $140,000 a year starting salary. My mind had never seen such large numbers outside of a hypothetical math problem. I was hooked. Caught up in balling out of control, I wanted to have all the Goosebumps books in the world and buy my mother that new fur coat. And so I will weave in some flower facts as well to kind of break up the tension of this story of my history, because it could be intense. In the 17th century Netherlands, during the period known as the tulip mania, tulip bulbs were so popular that they traded as a form of currency. On average, a tulip could sell for the equivalent of $60,000, depending on the rarity. The Cimeter Augustus, shown here, would have easily sold for 5 to 10 guilders, which is approximately a half to $1 million, adjusting for current inflation. I would have cleaned up back then. There is a nuanced narrative of growing up in a single-parent home without a father as a young black boy. Without my father, I grew up with a myriad of role models throughout my family and community. These men were both pimps and principals, gangsters and God-fearing men, alcoholics and athletes, hustlers and homemakers, haters and educators, sinners and saints, lovers and leaders. The rare and brief opportunities when I did get to see my dad as a child, I knew something wasn't right with him. People would tell me with hushed urgency that he was such a good basketball player and that someone must have slipped something in his drink out of jealousy, and that's why he's not right. So I didn't play sports as a kid. I didn't compete in any activity where males competed with one another because I feared in retaliation of being too good. By the 18th century, belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, had a reputation for both beauty and danger. Once used as a popular beauty fad by women to dilate their pupils, even though it could kill them if they used too much. Chemists at the time began isolating its active compounds, atropine and socialamine, which became among the first plant-derived alkaloids to be used in medicine to treat muscle spasms, motion sickness, and as an aid with surgeries. By the time I was 17, I was failing high school. It was just boring. I'm not gonna cap. My high school counselor gave my mother and I two options: go to summer school and play catch up, or go to military school and get my GED. To my mother, I only had one option. By the 18th and 19th centuries, botany became a formal academic discipline across Europe and North America. Carl Linnaeus's binomial nomenclature system, introduced in 1753, transformed flower studies from a hobby for gardeners and herbalists into a scientific endeavor. I graduated military school in 2007 with every badge, rank, and honor, and finishing high school 1 year early. I was back on track to becoming a doctor. When I went to college, there was two things that military school didn't have: freedom and women. I got kicked out. Twice. A dream deferred, I continued to chase my indoctrinated dreams of becoming a doctor. I tenaciously applied for jobs and worked my way up the corporate ladder, only falling off maybe once or twice, taking the long way to stop and smell the roses, as they say. I reached what I thought were my goals at the age of 27. I finally had my own place, bought a brand new car, a mattress, a giant TV, and a couch. Thank you, Big Lots. While working at a prestigious company as a scientist. I was dating a beautiful woman and even had the cable channels we couldn't unscramble as kids. And it was awful. I was in my late 20s when my grandmother told me that my father was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and had begun to lose his mind around the time I was born. That's the reason why I didn't have a place I can visit him at, and why he lived in an adult care facility. That's why I never saw him. That's why he never called. No one knew or didn't believe in mental health and issues in the 90s. If you lost your mind, it had to be some external factor, like a jealous person who wanted revenge by slipping a Mickey in your drink. On July 7th, 2018, I walked through these doors and would return every morning at 9 a.m. and stay until roughly 3 p.m. to participate in a series of intensive group therapy sessions. I was diagnosed with depression, general anxiety disorder, and suicidal ideation. The success that I was taught to chase, the man I was raised to be, the performative facade of manhood for capital gain was intent on taking me out. For 3 months, I made art. I spent time in nature. And I talked to a community of people about my emotions, struggles, and dreams. The most important lesson I learned in these 3 months was the concept of wabi-sabi. One afternoon in our art class, we were asked to go out in the neighborhood park and make art for things we saw in nature. After we found the twigs, leaves, and litter that we wanted to collage, present it, and psychoanalyze each other's artwork, one of the therapists asked, "What did you notice in nature that was perfect?" And after we thought for a while, we were like, well, nothing. Everything was asymmetrical, half-eaten, dead, or decaying. Our therapist then said, "If nothing in nature is perfect, then why are you trying to be perfect?" Up until this point in my life, success meant perfection. Money meant I wouldn't have any flaws. No one could mess with me. As long as I had money in the bank, I would have peace of mind. But as we all know, the king has everything he desires, but does he have peace of mind? And I'd like to add one other thing. I actually got this tattooed on me as a symbol of my resilience, if you want to see it after. And I'd like to read this verbatim. Wabi-sabi nurtures all that is authentic by acknowledging 3 simple realities. Nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. Without medication, which I'm not against, I was able to self-regulate back into being a working member of society. And we won't talk about the $15,000 medical bill that I had afterwards. For the next few years, I thought to myself, who else needs 3 months of making art, spending time in nature, and having a sense of community that shows up and listens to them, but can't afford it? Who don't got those good benefits like I do? And how can I be a catalyst to bring it to them? A year into the pandemic, I began to hear an interesting phrase. Can anybody guess what it was? Give him his flowers. But they meant giving gratitude, respect, admiration. And I was like, what about actually giving men flowers? Flowers are nature. Flowers are nature. They incorporate art when you arrange them and bring forth a sense of community when you give them to somebody. There's these gender norms that only women get flowers, or that men were the only ones hunting when we were in nomadic tribes. When asking men what's the male equivalent to receiving flowers, it was like a sexual act or a set of tools. Things or activities that promoted a productive capitalist society or took one's mind off a productive capitalist society long enough before they had to go back and participate in it again, which didn't make sense to me. Part 2. Turns out, Black men love flowers. So I started giving Black men flowers. 88% of men won't receive flowers until their funeral, until it's too late for them to smell them. So I decided to lower that statistic. I started a nonprofit called Black Men Flower Project, and through the medium of flowers, we allow Black men to be seen, heard, and acknowledged, with the containment that we only allow Black men to nominate one another due to societal permission that can only be given by other Black men. For the sake of argument, I want to talk about that containment in a very limited and binary way. In the early years of Black Men Flower Project, our process was wide open. Anyone could nominate a man to receive flowers, but we learned that visibility is complicated. I think of Judy Lester's The Proposition. This woman is bathed in light, hyper-visible, her role illuminated, but this image mirrors how some people are constantly seen, watched, and judged, even when they just want to quietly exist. Contrast this with Boland's hiding in the city. He stands there fully, but disappears into his surroundings, an invisible man in plain sight. The visual disappearance echoes what many men, particularly Black men, feel, unseen and unacknowledged until in crisis or assumed as a threat. The act of giving Black men flowers is countercultural. It confronts stereotypes that frame care and tenderness as feminine or unsafe for men. In the broadest stroke of masculinity, conformity is safety. Sometimes the nomination came from a coworker, a neighbor, or even a spouse. And what would have been unaffirming could feel exposing or even emasculating. Hypervisibility, meaning invisible, can be jarring. But when men give each other flowers, it's different. Two invisible people seeing each other. It's recognition of the male loneliness epidemic without making a spectacle of it. Affirmation without performance. It says, I see you in a world that is blind to us. Having painted a small portrait of social permission, we can start to shift societal norms to make this practice more accessible and normalized. Flowers from Black men to Black men, an act that allows us to begin to heal our societal sores. That being said, I want to briefly mention the impact we've had since starting the org in 2021. Through the many media outlets, we've been seen. Through many communities, we have been heard. And through our design principles, we acknowledge the core needs of every human. I'm also extremely thankful for this nonprofit, the City of Santa Fe's Art and Culture Department, and those who voted to bring this project, Free Art Flowers, to life. Here are few of my favorite images from this exhibition. Starting from the top left, we have Reclamation of Voice, a testimony of Bryce Williams of how his music tested the status quo of being a rapper in Santa Fe, a ski mask of flowers and a mic that blushes with flowers, challenging elements of a hardened genre into something now that can't fit into any conventional frame. Reclamation of Movement, my homie Trey, a king with his floral sword and shield, with a crown of flowers to match no less. How can a straight man ballet? And how do his lady counterparts react to the closest of a man that could mistake dance for desire? The king stands ready to defend his morals and the peace of mind of his dance peers and fight the stereotypes of toxic masculinity. Reclamation of Masculinity, that's me. A homage to my father, the basketball player that couldn't be guarded. The wings that his opponents couldn't see became the flowers on my back that allowed me to fly above any expectation of what it meant to be a man. Reclamation of Education, a homeschool child, Pierce, 13, dreams of being a rocket scientist. Who would be a fool to think that his dreams are impossible? Those who look down on him will soon be looking up as he launches into the sky with a jetpack powered by red hydrangeas. Don't be dismissive of what this student can teach you. And lastly, Reclamation of Identity, the sage Asatu. If you only look and listen above the Jersey accent and copper skin, then you'll be blind and deaf to the true nature of his wisdom. The farmer from the concrete jungle, what you see is not what you get, and it can only be heard through seeing the arrangements that stem from his megaphone. Act 3, the future of flowers. So from what I've learned through Black Men Flower Project and all that I've done, from working in New Mexico State prisons with Seed and Bloom, to dissecting the factors of wellness with educators with the New Mexico Department of Education, and speaking at a Creative Mornings event, I've done so much more than give Black men flowers. Albeit for a greater good, albeit for a greater good, not the mission I set out to do. And because of losing focus of what really matters to Black Men Flower Project, I've decided it's time to give birth to a new idea today on this stage, but not without some context. When you think of health, what comes to mind? Mental health, physical health. When people think of giving men flowers, it's mental health. Maybe it's because of my own story. Maybe because there's 100 other nonprofits that are focused on aiding men in their mental health. But if we limit our thinking to mental, then we lose sight of the whole flower. When you think of a flower, do you only think of the petals? As humans or flowers, we are more than petals or minds. There are 8 areas of our mortal existence that need to be acknowledged. Let's start with the petals or mental health. Like the petals of a flower, mental health is what most people gravitate towards when in the midst of conversation in our school systems, nonprofit programming, and our national headlines. It is the known invisible factor that we seek to soothe through apps, meditation, and self-care. But it doesn't just exist in isolation. There have been times in my journey where my mental health was the priority, or I had to stop and seek healing, balance, and restoration. But again, I learned that true healing isn't just about the mind, or it's about the whole person. On to the sepals, or financial health. Sepals protect the bud before it blooms and support the weight of the petals thereafter. Sorry, I looked at the time. Just as financial health ensures stability and security, having to navigate financial challenges can be harder without knowing how to gain a sense of freedom from economic stability. Without financial well-being, knowledge in a capitalist society, growth can be stunted. I'll speak briefly to the next few ones. The pistils are spiritual health. At the heart of our flowers lies the pistil, essential for nurturing new life. Spiritual health functions much like the pistil by grounding us in our beliefs, values, and faith. The stamen or the anther, intellectual health. The anther is a part of the stamen, produces and releases pollen that bees carry to share to other flowers. In a similar way, intellectual health is about cultivating and sharing knowledge. It allows us to grow, to challenge narratives, to seek knowledge, and higher education. The stem, physical health. The stem gives the flower strength, just as our physical health sustains us. Being able-bodied is a temporary privilege that most of us are gifted at birth, but as we grow old, get sick, become immobile, and pass away, we lose that privilege. The leaves are our occupational health. Leaves absorb sunlight, turning into energy. Our work and purpose do the same for us. Soil and ecosystem, environmental health. A flower cannot grow in toxic soil. Our environment, our physical surroundings, the policies that shape our communities, the conditions that we live in deeply impact our ability to grow and survive. Last but not least, roots. The roots anchor a flower, just as social health grounds us. As mentioned prior in my journey, has been shaped by the people who have supported me, by the communities that have embraced us. Our relationships, our mentors, our sense of belonging. This is what keeps us stable, even in the most difficult of times. Black Men Flower Project is more than mental wellness. It is about caring for every aspect of our well-being. We cannot thrive by only focusing on one part of the flower. We must nurture the whole plant. Our board of directors, every Black man that has been brave enough to accept flowers, and myself are committed to broadening the conversation from individual wellness to systemic change. Simply put, healed people heal communities. So I have a question. When you guys saw the flowers, did anybody say, "Oh"? Like, was that like an initial reaction? As defined before, awe is a feeling of respect or reverence mixed with dread and wonder, often inspired by something majestic or powerful. Awe is what we feel when we encounter something vast and mysterious, something that fearfully challenges our understanding of the world. Neuroscientists have found that awe quiets the default mode network of the brain, turning down self-focus and opening us up to connection. It lowers stress, improves well-being, inspires generosity. In other words, awe literally rewires us to be better humans. Pairing this with flowers and thinking of how awesome it is, how can we carry this feeling into deep-seated oppressive factors in our communities? So let's first define floral activism. This is a working title, it may change. Patent pending, patent pending, patent pending. Floral activism is the practice of using flowers as tools for social change, creating moments of awe that disrupt invisibility, affirm dignity, and build connection. A simple gesture becomes recognition, turning beauty into a catalyst for empathy, dialogue, and collective care. Simply put, a flower is a hammer with the power to dismantle oppressive systems and build sustainable access for all. You may be asking yourself, how can something so delicate fix something so rigid and permanent that can feel permanent? How can a flower be a hammer? And to this, I have 4 main points. Flowers disrupt the ordinary. They are unexpected in contexts involving men or when given without notice or capital cause. This disruption is powerful. It destabilizes stereotypes and monetary exchange and invites in new narratives. 2, giving flowers as a public ritual is recognition. It affirms that someone is seen, valued, and worthy of a loving act, countering both invisibility and hypervisibility. 3, community bridges. Flowers are neutral yet powerful, universal natural objects. They allow people from different backgrounds to participate in a shared act of giving and a community through our mutual friend, Mother Nature. And 4, a catalyst for microactivism. Each flower given is a small but potent intervention, an act of resilience against isolation, a vote for community connection, a statement that our care and wellness is revolutionary for its own sake. By multiplying these acts, you create a disrupted network of microactivists advancing a culture of care. So what does floral activism look like? I have 5 quick examples. I do want to acknowledge that the term activism can be related to environmental activism. So going in just order that I have here, floral care packages and food or pantry boxes. If anybody volunteers or is giving aid to one another, add flowers to that. Just as much as those people need food, they may be somewhere in the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of need. They need to experience that awe and that wonder and have that aha moment, that sense of awe. Random acts of kindness. Leave bouquets out for people. The 2 bouquets that I got were so beautiful, and I wish imagine how somebody else would feel just coming upon that walking down Cerrillos. Maybe somebody unhoused, maybe someone late for the bus, someone just, taking their child to daycare and walking. I also have seed bombs. So, native plants, obviously, there's a lot of invasive species and plants all over. So I thought, hey, maybe create some seed bombs. If you're an educator or teacher, you can make these with your kids or students and just throw them around. Throw them at people too, In the classroom. So flowers have been proven to lower stress, freshen the air, and improve focus. So again, if you work in the education system, or bring flowers for the classroom and to all the classrooms. And lastly, I would say recycle your stems. One of the things that we were able to do, and I don't have an example here, is with the exhibit, if anybody saw Free Our Flowers back in January and early February, the room was filled with fresh flowers, and we had to recycle that maybe once a week. And it was very what's the word? Expensive is what comes to mind, but it's very wasteful. The floral industry is very wasteful. So what we did with the majority of those petals is there's a local org here called We Grow Eco, And they took those flower petals and they turned them into floral envelopes, into posters. So think about if you have leftover flowers, like how can I repurpose these? Can I crunch these up and make some art with them? Can I put them in a candle? Like if you have, there's so many ways that we can continue to reuse and recycle even after in the sense of decay and something being dead. It still has life. You just have to find out. So, that being said, when you received your flowers today, it was more than a gift. It was an invitation to the state of awe, a small, beautiful thing in your hands that says, you are seen, you are a part of something bigger, and you are not alone. And the moment we stop being individuals, we start becoming a community. I ask that if you need this awe today, this tool of wonder and hammer, hold on to it. But if your cup is full and there is another in need, flower forward. I would like each of you to become a floral activist today. If you align with the message you heard today, please stand and repeat after me. And depending if your flower is attached, you can hold up your flower or put your hand over your heart. So yeah, let's get started. Do I have a flower? Yes, I have a flower. With this tool, I promise to dismantle systems that harm and hurt, to build unions that nurture nature and new kin. With this flower, I know its power. This will be a part of my revolution. To love what is plentiful as much as what is scarce. Lastly, I'd like to dedicate this presentation to my father, who passed away at the beginning of this year. I love you, Dad. Thank you, Santa Fe.